Warning. Some viewers may experience strong reactions, including tears, migraines, and stomach pain from laughing. Viewer discretion is recommended.
So this was a game that was played between Worstfish and Worstfish on Lichess. As you might know, Worstfish is basically Stockfish programmed to make what it calculates to be the worst move possible, which is the move that benefits the opponent the most. And this game is just wild. The game begins with g4, which is known as the Garab opening, and Worstfish, playing the black pieces, responds with g5, and this is known as the double Garab. This is followed by f4, which is known as the Coca-Cola Gambit, and as you can see, black is already better here, and it's minus 0.7. This is followed by knight to h6, developing a knight, attacking this. It's not a bad move, but it's the worst move calculated by the bot. So after this, Worstfish, playing the white pieces, plays king to f2. Just bring out the king and allowing knight takes g4, checking the king, and you see that the king is just going to march straight into the center. We have knight to f5, giving up a knight. King to f3. The king is marching closer to the opponent's side, and the knight has been ignored. Knight to g3, voluntarily giving away a knight again, and attacking the rook as well. King to e3, just sacrificing a rook, and moving the king out in front of all of these pawns and all of these pieces. We have bishop to h6, possibly with ideas of pawn takes f4. King to d4. Now the king has made it to the center of the board, having walked all the way from e1 to f2 to e3 and finally to d4. We have f6. King to c5. Now the king has crossed into the opponent's side of the board. And people say that a strong leader often leads the army, but this is kind of extreme. The army has been forgotten, except for these two pawns. And the king is just walking into the middle of nowhere. Now we have king to f7. And as you can see, the position is now zeros, and completely drawn, even though this king, the white king, has made it to c5, all the way from e1. And black probably thinks, oh, because the Worstfish playing the white pieces has moved his king all the way to c5, I should do it as well. This is followed by h4, and the rook is still hanging, and has been hanging for like the past 5 moves. Knight takes e2, finally taking a pawn, and sacrificing a knight again. But as you can see, the position still benefits black a bit, because this king is in the center and doing nothing. We have d4, ignoring the knight, and now finally we can see that it's mate in 6 for black, because this king is going to be trapped in the opponent's side of the board. We have king to e6, just marching the king out, and now white has an advantage again. b4, further trapping the king. Queen to f8, c4, and now the king is trapped by all of these pawns. Usually the king should be behind the pawns, but apparently now the king is in front of the pawns. Queen to f7, and now it's mate in 1 for white. And we get our first mate in 1 of the move on move 11. And this is just mate. And this is also mate. So there's 2 ways white can mate here. We have knight to a3, just allowing checkmate for black after b6, king to b5, and knight to c3. Wow, that is quite an impressive checkmate. But instead, black plays a5, and again, giving mate to white. We have knight to b5. If it were a regular game, I would commend white for moving his knight to b5, because this threatens a fork on c7, but this is not a regular game with the 2 kings in the middle of the board. And this is followed by knight to g3, again giving mate to white. Bishop to a3, giving immediate mate to black. rook to g8, knight to e2, knight c6, developing a knight, rook h2, knight h1, and now the knight has managed to find itself all the way on the opponent's side of the board, and the knight is now grazing in the corner. Rook to c1, rook a6, rook c3, knight f2, attacking the queen, rook to g2, giving away mate and the queen, rook to g6, queen to d2, moving the queen out of danger, but still giving mate to black, a4, queen e1, knight d1, rook g3, bishop f8, rook cd3, bishop h6, rook df3, rook g7, bishop b2, knight f2, bishop a1, knight to b8, and they shuffle pieces. And again, this queen is just hanging. And you might think, if they just shuffle pieces like this, wouldn't it reach the 50-move rule and the game will be a draw? But in a few moves, the bot is probably programmed to make a capture. Queen to d2, a3, queen b2, just giving away a queen. Rook a6, queen c2, rook g8. Queen d1, bishop g7, moving the bishop back for no reason. Queen to c2, rook to b6, rook h2, d5, finally striking in the center. And although it's still mate and 1 for white, but white no longer has this as a mate. But still, queen to f5 here is mate. But instead, white plays rook to d3, bishop d7. Again, there's mate with just pushing the pawn. Rook f2, knight g3, getting the knight back. Queen c1, bishop h8. The bishop has just moved from here, back there, and now into the corner. Rook f3, rook a6, knight a7, rook d8, queen d1, knight h1, bishop e1, and the pieces get shuffled for quite some time. And note that this knight is just on the opposite side of the board as well, and it can be captured 2 ways. But of course, the bot will ignore that and play something like rook to a6, h5, b5, striking out the center, and striking out this pawn. Queen to b1, rook e8, queen c2, b6, knight c1. And the pieces just get shuffled across the board. And we finally see a capture with knight takes c6. And finally, there is no mate on the board. And it's only minus 0.9 for black, which is surprising, even though this king is all the way out on c5. But right here, black plays queen to h5, again giving mate in 1 to white. And this capture was played on the 55th move. And when was the last capture? Let's look. The last capture was on move 8 with knight takes e2. And how many moves was that? It's like 47 moves. 47 moves without a capture. 47 moves. That close to the 50-move rule. And now, after queen h5, rook g8, queen b2, rook a6, bishop b2, and more pieces get shuffled, and it's minus 6 here for black, but there's no mate anymore, and this queen is just capturable. Queen to f7. Again, in this game, it seems that black has always is always getting mated in 2 or 1 move. We have c5, rook g6, bishop f3, rook g7, some more piece shuffling, and this queen has just been hanging ever since a3 was played. And how long was that? Yeah, this queen has just been hanging for on move 56. White played this move, and what is it? It's like move 62 now. It's been 6 moves. Rook a7, hanging a rook, but this queen is also hanging, and there's also mate. Queen b1, finally saving the queen, and Her Majesty is now safe. Rook a8, bishop c1, just moving the bishop back to its home square. Rook a g8, rook d2. Some more pieces get shuffled around, and this queen has managed to move back to b2. Apparently, Her Majesty really likes to die, and just has managed to volunteered herself to be killed by this pawn. Rook f1, d8, king a5, and now white is inviting mate again. It's mate in 5 for black. Knight to f2, knight e5. Now it's mate in 1 with rook here. And again, it's mate in 1 for white. Now it's minus 15, 16 for black now, but there's no mate anymore because this rook doesn't cover this anymore. It's blocked by the pawn. c4, bishop to c4, and again this queen has just been hanging for the past several moves. c6, rook here, bishop there, rook back, rook to d3, rook c8, rook back, and now there's mate in 1 because this rook has managed to free itself and can now give checkmate. But instead it goes back. And finally we have capture again on move 80. The last capture was on move 55, so it's been 25 moves. Not as bad as last time. Last time it was 47 moves. King takes, another capture, and now it's minus 3 for black. Although this was the worst move on the board, it was only there are only 2 moves, and this was the worst move. So black still has an advantage, but we'll soon see that black will give that advantage away. King takes, king to b1, king to c4, now inviting mate in 1 again. Bishop to b2, giving away a bishop. Bishop g7, rook de1, rook b8, rook e5. Some more piece shuffling, but we have e5 striking at the center. King there, inviting mate. Rook there. Queen a1, just trapping the queen. Queen to g6. Bishop takes, finally taking a pawn, but still there's mate somewhere on the board. Queen takes c2. That's mate. But instead we see king to d3, just moving the king further into enemy territory. And know that this king has moved all the way from e8, so that's quite a long journey. Bishop to b2, bishop c4, bishop a3, e4, bishop back, rook to f8, bishop c1, rook to e8, queen b2, bishop a6, queen b3, king b3, bishop h8, a3, rook a8, rook f2, rook c8. And as you can see, the eval bar has just been going on a roller coaster ride. It's been going up and down, up and down. And know that some people may become dizzy watching that, so apologies for that. Knight there. Bishop g7, just giving up a bishop, and also mate. Knight to c3. Bishop to h8, and knight to a4. It's been 100 moves of Worstfish versus Worstfish so far. Each side has made 100 moves after rook to g8. And here I finally got sick of this mess. We have a king on d3 that went from g8, and we have a king on b3 that did not castle, that went from e1 all the way to c5 and back, and somehow managed to survive the journey. And we have a hanging rook, and we have some very misplaced pieces. We have a knight on the corner Bishop stuck in the corner. This knight doing nothing. This queen has managed to commit suicide at least 20 times. And right here, I just decided to end the game with rook to e3 checkmate.